For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, we are live and amplified. So let's get ready to podcast.
Fire it up.
Welcome, everybody, to another live and amplified livecast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we are back at it again with another amazing podcast. First off, I do want to thank you all for sticking around and letting me take a slight, not quite 2-week break. It was much needed. Went out to Chicago, did family stuff and whatnot, but a lot's happened over the last 2 weeks, and I can't wait to tell you all about that. So make sure you're following us on Facebook and all our socials. As the next few days kind of progress, I will slowly unleash the herd of good information that has come out in the last couple of weeks. But in the meantime, we are back with the Live and Amplified Livecast. We have a very special guest. We have Chelsea Burns. How's it going today, Chelsea?
It's going great.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to have you here. Like many of the most recent people we've had on the podcast, I was introduced to you through Emmy Law. So it's just really excited to have you on the podcast and get to know more about you.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for anybody that's just kind of getting to meet you for the first time, what's kind of your background? What's your story? What got you into music?
Yeah, so I started playing piano when I was 5. So pretty young, I started learning how to play music, and then started singing in my teenage years, and then kind of put the two together because I was kind of thinking, why not? And then I began songwriting from there. And ever since I was young, I also went to school and was just always taking music lessons. And we were just talking about Chicago right before we started streaming, but I actually moved to Chicago and went to Columbia College, Chicago to get a Bachelor of Arts in Music.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Knew a lot of people that went to Columbia. It was kind of weird. Like a lot of my mutual friends that didn't know each other before college, then they went to Columbia, and after they came back, it was like, oh, hey, how did you two become friends? Oh, yeah. So it's always weird. But so you're originally from Iowa, correct?
Yeah, I'm originally from Des Moines.
Okay.
I also learned a lot. We had a lot of music, a really good music program at my high school. So I learned a lot of the foundations of music, singing, playing piano, and all that sort of thing when I was in high school.
Gotcha. And so high school was kind of your formative years as far as becoming a musician, or did it start kind of prior to that?
It started prior to that, but it was especially the choirs in high school, jazz choir specifically was one of those where I started to learn how to do stuff outside of classical music. Cause I feel like that is usually people's first introduction to music, especially in a high school, is a classical choir.
Yeah.
But it was jazz choir that kind of got me into the learning. I feel like jazz standards are really good for especially pop musicians to learn just how to write really good basic songs.
Awesome. I remember in 4th grade I joined the choir, and I quit because we were always playing or singing songs that nobody knew. It was until we got into upper grade or into 7th and 8th grade, and then we would start singing random Beatles songs, which it was So choir is an interesting place to go in and learn about music, because you're going to learn some deep cuts for the most part.
Yeah. And it's also really good for training your ears, I feel like, when it comes to harmonizing with other people and just learning how chords are built, essentially.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Just side note really quick, Frank, thank you for the sub. Really appreciate you on that. We're out here trying to build our following on Twitch, as Chelsea, so are you. So I'm hoping some of the people that are usually on our streams are here today, and they'll go check out your stream. To kind of switch gears, since we're on that topic, how's the Twitch streaming been going? I know you just started within the last 3 months?
I haven't even been streaming for 2 months yet. I
Oh,
think this week or next week will be my like official 2 month mark.
oh, wow.
I also have the chat pulled up on my phone too and see Frank's there. But it's been like, it's grown surprisingly fast. Like I started Twitch kind of having no idea what it was and thinking that I was only ever going to be streaming to like 5 people every single time I got on. But I was surprised at how quickly like word gets out when you're on Twitch, and I've been really consistent with the streaming. So I think I got like 50 new followers just on yesterday. I'm like, what day was literally yesterday?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I saw you were on and I'm sitting there like, I know I should go jump on her stream really quick, but I am so tired. I just got off of work. I think I'm going to just kind of have to pass on this one. And that's always been the hard part is as a consumer of Twitch, it's like, okay, who do I go watch tonight? So that's always an interesting dilemma within myself.
Yeah, I'm still getting better at that with like the balance between like working my real life jobs and like having my real life and then having I'm trying to do like 3 streams a week. And then on top of that, hopefully once everything gets going, I can find like a day, at least one day a week where I can intentionally watch somebody else's stream. But
now, are you actively doing like live shows outside of Twitch, or is Twitch kind of supplementing all that right now?
Twitch is pretty much supplementing that right now. I was getting a little burnt out with like Nashville's. A lot of the writers rounds, and they're really great. And I am going to play some more writers rounds in the near future, but they don't pay, and that is something that like just as a musician who wants to make money doing music or make a living doing music needs to make money. So
yeah, for sure. And how long have you been in Nashville at this point?
Yeah, I've been here for 6 years now.
Okay, wow, nice. And you've seen it grow like crazy. I went there for the first time in 2018, and I've been back a couple of times since, and every time I go, it's like I don't know anything. Like this city changes so much. It's ridiculous.
I pretty much tell everybody like there's so many really cool like bars and restaurants and places that there's so many places that I still have not been to or that somebody will tell me about and I'll be like, I didn't even know that existed. Yeah. So there's like the plus side to it where like there's always something new to try or like somewhere new to go, but then there's just so much.
I feel that. I feel like that's almost anywhere in town or any town you go to, like
that's true.
Always, there's always some place you've never been just because it's not on the side of town you go to or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But just kind of backtracking a little bit, you're in Iowa doing like you're from Iowa and that's kind of where you got your start in music. At what point did you move to Chicago for school, right?
Yeah. So I lived in Des Moines until I was 18. So it was pretty much right when I graduated high school. I just moved to Chicago.
Okay. Gotcha. And you stayed there for a few years through school and whatnot. What was some of the takeaways going through a formal education in the music business?
Yeah.
Music in general, I guess, not necessarily just the business.
Yeah, I feel like I wish that I had learned more about music business because they did separate like the learning, the like voice lessons and everything from the business side. So I think that was probably my biggest takeaway was like, I wish I had gone to school for music business and like taken lessons on this side rather than the other way around. But it's all an expensive learning experience.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's just school in general, an expensive learning experience.
Yeah. And you start when you're like 18, 19, you're like, I don't really know what I'm doing. And then, so it's for sure a learning experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So in Chicago, do you regret the move to Chicago or was it such an experience?
No. I loved Chicago. I think that I almost feel like the best part of my college experience was me getting to live in a big city. Just, I could move there completely on my own. Like I didn't know anybody when I moved, and it was a really exciting experience for me. And I think like being able to learn how to live in a big city on my own, and making friends in college is a lot easier than making friends out, but still like learning how to make friends in a new environment. And I think that if anything, going to college in Chicago gave me that. Yeah.
That confidence kind of.
Yeah. And just like real life, how to be an adult out in the real world. And, you know,
I totally understand that. I tell everybody, like, even though I don't really, I wish I probably wouldn't have went to college, but looking back at it, it's like, man, I matured so much in I ended up going for like 3 years because I had done an associate's degree somewhere else. But just like in those 3 years I was getting my bachelor's, it's like, yeah, I matured so much. I'm a different human being from that first semester to my final semester. So
yeah, for sure.
So at what point did you kind of start exploring your own writing? Was that more in high school, college? Where did you kind of pick up the pen and start writing your own music?
Yeah. So I started writing kind of basically in high school. And I just had like a handful of songs that I would have never played to anybody since then, because they're like my very beginner songs. But I started writing probably when I was like 15 or so. And it's been like a journey. I feel like songwriting is just like a journey where I personally think that you can't really teach it. It's more of just something that like you have to just continuously do until you figure out what your writing style is. But I started writing when I was in high school, and then kind of learned more of like what my writing style was in college.
And were you listening to anybody during that period of like trying to find out who you wanted to be musically? Were you listening to anybody for influences, like any specific musicians?
Yeah. I loved John Mayer. I had like a John Mayer phase when I was like 16, 17. I always tell everybody that I got my wisdom teeth out when I was 16. And then that was right when the Continuum album came out. And so I was just like listening to that album on repeat. That was like my first John Mayer introduction. And then after that, I was just like obsessed with his like lyrics and his songwriting, and just being able to like churn out a bunch of songs.
I will say, prior to, I think it was like 2007, 2008, I wasn't really a fan of John Mayer, but then he released this cover song with Fall Out Boy, the Michael Jackson Beat It cover song that they did. And I gained so much respect for him as a musician, just listening to him play the guitar during that song. I was like, oh, wow, he's actually a guitar player. He's not just a pop musician that pretends to play the guitar.
Yeah, he's an incredible guitar player. I actually haven't heard that cover, so I'm gonna go listen to that after.
It's good. I still listen to it on occasion on YouTube. So after school, did you move straight to Nashville after Chicago, or was there another stop in between?
I was reading Dancer Chef's comment. I graduated from college, and then I stayed in Chicago for a couple years. I was teaching yoga for a little bit. I was just trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. Chicago, it doesn't necessarily, I don't think Chicago has like the biggest music scene, which is kind of the downside. Unless you're already an established artist, it's really hard to like build a Chicago following. So I just found like taking forever to like haul all of my stuff from one side of the city to the next. It just ended up getting a little exhausting. And I was like, I think it's time for me to move to a city that's like easier for me to like navigate and carry my stuff around. So that was kind of the reasoning of just wanting to be able to live in a different place and have a different experience with music. And
I don't think people realize how big Chicago is. Like they go and visit and they go to like Millennial Park or Millennium Park, not Millennial Park. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Millennium Park. And then they go to like Navy Pier and Grant Park in that area.
Yeah.
And it's like, nope, there's more to Chicago. It's such a big city. It's
a massive city. And one of my friends, like I remember it was like a 40-minute trek because I didn't have a car to like go from one train, and then I had to transfer trains to get to her.
Yeah.
And then there would be like some nights where I'd give up and I'd spend like $40 on a cab to get there and back so I could save time. But if you're like taking the public transit and everything, it sometimes take you like 45 minutes to an hour to get from one side of the city to the other.
Yeah, for sure. And you brought it up about Chicago not really having much of a music scene. And it's one of those things where Chicago is so big that they do have a scene, but it's just like pockets of everything. So it's like, you got to like migrate to the pocket that you want to be in. And it's like, man, I don't want to do that. So it's just one of because like growing up there, I only remember like a handful of independent bands that were actually there and playing music. And it was mainly friends bands that just kind of played because it was fun, or somebody thought it would be funny to start a hip-hop group and just be weird about it, so like that was my early introduction to all that. But for the most part, until I started Live and Amplified, I didn't know that many like Chicago based independent bands.
And I remember playing, I think what is it called? Now I'm forgetting what the venue was called, but there was a venue that a lot of my friends would play that was like closed off from the main front part of the restaurant. So people had to like buy tickets to get in. And so essentially, if I could only get like 3 to 5 people to show up, I'd be needing to bring people out myself. And then I would also most likely, if the other band was kind of in like the same position as me, like sometimes there would only be like 10 people in the room, and then I'd get like no new fans. And that's probably the best part of Nashville is like every venue that I play, like I'll end up meeting completely new people that hear my music. And that's Nashville probably the biggest difference.
Destination. It's great. So when you were kind of made that decision to leave Chicago, was it an easy choice to pick Nashville, or why did you ultimately end up choosing Nashville?
I honestly chose Nashville because it was a cheaper place to live. It was probably between like Nashville, LA, and then New York was pretty much off the table for it being like a more expensive, even larger version of Chicago.
Yeah. And obviously going back home wasn't ever an option.
No, not really something that I've been interested in.
Yeah, I got you. I've been through Iowa. Both my cousins went to University of Iowa. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I get it. I 100% get it. So
yeah,
but
it's a great place to grow up, and they do have really good music venues there. Which
do you go back and play? And
I haven't, just because it would be like I would have to like figure out how to get like a keyboard, and because I feel like flying is like the easiest way to get to it's just a little too far now to like carry all my stuff with me somehow.
Yeah. And keyboard, when you're out playing like shows, live, keyboard's the primary instrument.
Yeah, I never learned how to play guitar, so keyboard's my main the only thing I haul around.
Thought about tried to pick up the guitar just to try and make your life a little bit easier when you're out there traveling?
I just have no interest in it. Okay. I don't really know why.
That's fair.
It's just kind of like I got myself an acoustic guitar at one point and feel like I was doing pretty well at learning it, but it just never, I don't know, it never quite worked out for me.
Gotcha. So after you moved to or left Chicago, you end up going to Nashville. At what point are you starting to release music? Were you in Chicago when you were starting to release music, or was that not till Nashville?
So I started recording when I was in Chicago, and that was before I really knew anything about the recording process. So that was also another learning experience for me. So I kind of went with like the first person, and I realized that I didn't end up loving the way that the songs turned out. And all of my first recordings that I did in Chicago were like a full band, like actual session musicians brought in. And so when I moved to Nashville, I had never actually released any of those songs that I recorded in Chicago, since I didn't love them. And I spent maybe like 2 or 3 years living here before I met a producer that I realized I wanted to do. Rather than bringing in a bunch of session musicians, I wanted it to be like him. He does play a bunch of the instruments as well, but like just doing a little more like pop style recording.
Yeah, I got you. That's cool. And so it was 2019 when you started releasing music. Is it Spotify correct on that one?
Yeah.
Okay. I say I don't trust Spotify a lot of times because it's like, oh, 2019, but I really released that song in 2017.
That's true.
So kind of going through a lot of your music here, it looks like you've done mostly singles or all singles.
Yeah, I've done all singles. I just learned that I was having a hard time building a fan base for myself organically. And I feel like Twitch is probably going to be the thing that hopefully changes that. But but just knowing that if I were to release an EP, I'd probably start with an EP, that all of those individual songs would not get as much attention if it were somebody brand new, just like hearing one. And I feel like people's attention spans are just so short. And if you don't have a fan base and people who are really interested in like listening to all the songs together, it's hard to like, I'll even do like some promo for one of my songs and sometimes it doesn't even hit the other songs. Like people will just listen to the song and maybe like it on Spotify, and that's about it.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate part about the way things kind of are, is they tend to end and die at that one song, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I will say this about that. I have noticed that a lot of bands that are out like touring constantly, like if they're doing shows, whatever, they like the albums tend to work a little bit better for them because they're playing in front of new fans every night.
Yeah.
So.
And that's one thing that I was trying to figure out, because being able to, if I'm not making money as a musician, being able to pay a band on top of everything was something that I wasn't able to do. And then I think when the pandemic hit, I just hit like total burnout as somebody trying to get live shows or trying to get things that were bigger. So I feel like finding Twitch was like my way of being able to still just like play my songs on piano without having it be like something that takes a bunch of money and like energy, and maybe I feel like it's just like a nicer thing to have.
For sure. I 100% agree. So you were in Nashville when the pandemic hit. How did you kind of balance everything? Were you looking at doing Twitch at that point, or was it just not even on your radar?
I didn't even know that Twitch existed for musicians. I actually didn't find out about it until January this year when I played a writer's round with Emmy. Mm-hmm. And then I was kind of telling her about my burnout with being a musician in Nashville. Like, it's great to be in a city full of musicians, but then the downside is like having to compete for gigs that I'm not even 100% sure really fit who I am. And there's just so many people trying to do the same thing. So it's nice to be able to have somewhere where I can build a community of reach more people.
And so obviously Twitch is this interesting place where you can go in and try out new music, or play those cover songs that nobody seems to request, or like it's like you can just go in there, be yourself. you don't have to worry about screwing up or, whatnot. Cause like the people that are there watching you are there because they want to watch you and
Yeah.
listen to you sing. What's been the biggest adjustment for you coming off of playing live shows like the writers rounds and stuff and primarily playing on Twitch now?
Um, I feel like it almost hasn't been like it's much easier for me to play on Twitch because playing live, you never really know what the room is going to be like. Like I can try to talk in between songs and am just like talking over people talking or people are drinking a bunch and like talking over me while I'm playing. And so I feel like a lot of like the writers rounds, or I was playing like 3 to 4 hour gigs that were kind of like what I'd play on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
But you just never know what the room is going to be like. Like occasionally I'll get people who are like really intently listening and love the whole set. And then other nights I'll get people who just don't even pay attention to me at all. And it's a really like taxing thing to have to play 4 hours to a room of people that aren't really listening.
Yeah. Whereas on Twitch, you're the primary focus. Whereas if you're at a gig, you might be the primary focus for some, but for others, you're just kind of, oh, you're playing music, cool, and I'm going to ignore you.
Exactly.
So that's so I did want to talk about your most recent single that you released back in January. I Miss Being Me. I was watching the music video for that, and I thought, who shot the music video for it? It was
Austin McMains is his name.
He did a really incredible job. I like when people think outside the box for their music videos and do something a little bit different, where the musician that wasn't you in the video, right? That was somebody else.
No, okay. That was,
I just wanted to make sure what I'm about to say is accurate before. I enjoy it when somebody lets like a story play out in a music video that isn't necessarily centered around the musician.
Yeah.
It was definitely a really cool touch.
I've never actually done a music video before. I wanted to make sure I'm like, hello, Luke. I was like making sure I don't miss anybody who's coming in. But I've never actually done a music video before. And I Miss Being Me. Well, I did write it from a very personal place. I wanted it to be a song for everyone. And I also wanted it to be a song for artists. And so I was kind of thinking along the lines of Sia, who has like all the like dancers in her music videos, but low budget version of that, where I wanted another artist to like play out how they interpreted the song. So I pretty much told Kylie, which was the dancer, I told her to just like do whatever she wanted to do. I didn't give her any instructions at all. Awesome. And she just did a completely, like, she just made it up herself. So
sweet. And I'm assuming that was shot in Nashville, right?
Yeah. We shot it in Bicentennial Park. Yeah.
See, next time I come out to Nashville, I need to just go out there to enjoy Nashville, because every time I go there, it's to work. And it's like everybody brings up all these cool venues or these cool places to go visit. And it's like, yeah, I've got like 30 minutes. What can I do in 30 minutes? And I'm downtown.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's... next time I go out there, it just needs to be, I'm chilling, I'm doing fun things, not necessarily working. So
yeah, I found that location. They have like this really cool, as you can see in the video, this kind of like outdoor stage, like concrete stage. And every time I walked by, I'm like, this is weirdly quiet. It's just like always weirdly quiet during like the weekdays. And so thankfully, the day that we chose to shoot the video, like nobody was there, and it was really lucky.
Nice. It's always good to have that kind of luck, because I've definitely been in a position where it's like, oh, I've been to this place 20 times over the last month, and there's never anybody there at this time. And then the one time you go and shoot, it's everybody in the world's there, and it's like, dang you, I can't believe it. So, so you said you wrote I Miss Being Me from like a very personal place. As much as you want to share, or you feel comfortable sharing, what's kind of the song about?
Yeah. So I was explaining, I don't know if you've heard of The Artist's Way. It's this like workbook where you kind of reconnect with your artist self, essentially. So I started doing the artist way since I had time over the pandemic. And I was writing what's called morning pages, which is like 3 pages of just stream of consciousness. And I was writing, I realized that I had kind of stopped being myself, like as a musician, because I'd gotten so much advice and so many people's opinions thrown at me. And the songs, not the songs that I've like most recently released, because I did find like the producer that I work with and everything, I feel very much like myself when I record songs with them. But I was just finding that I wasn't really feeling like myself in the songs that I was like writing, and mostly the songs that I was releasing, because of people's opinions. And people have so many opinions is what I've learned. Yeah. Like, you should do this or you should do that, or you're not enough of this or you're not enough of that. And so I ended up writing about what I missed about being a musician when I was a teenager, like before I had any of those ideas placed in my head. And I ended up writing I Miss Being Me, like in those stream of consciousness. And then I like went through the page and I was like, I like that. And so I wrote it down as like a title idea. And then I don't even really remember writing the song even. It just kind of like came out like once I had that idea in my head.
When you finally get to that point where it's like, oh, I've got something that will be a good song, whether it's like a title or a hook or whatever, what's kind of your tendencies as far as like completing a song? Will you take that and write out the entire song lyrically, or will you try and find like a guitar riff or something? Like, what's kind of your process writing music?
I usually write lyrics first. So it's usually not like I don't usually need a whole song, but as long as I have like a first verse or like something down where I can just start plunking out chords. And then I usually do them. So I start with some lyrics and then I'll sit down and start like singing on top of figuring out chords at the same time. And then I'll write the rest of the lyrics along with that.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so for I Miss Being Me, you'd mentioned that you were kind of doing a stream of consciousness writing, and the song title kind of came out. Is this kind of how you are approaching or some of your new music that you're working on currently, or do you think this is kind of like a one and done scenario that was just happened to work in that moment?
I feel like they're all a little different, but I'm definitely one of those people who I'm better at like writing a song when an idea comes to me rather than sitting down and trying to like force an idea. So the most recent song, or my next release rather, is I had it while I was driving, like this idea of a line, and I just like quickly like pulled up my like voice memos and I just like spoke like the main line of the song, and that's what ended up. But I'll just be doing like either the most random thing that has nothing to do with music at all is when something will come to me, or stream of consciousness doesn't always like get me to an idea songwriting wise. But
so I ask every musician this question, because it seems to become more and more of a popular thing where musicians will write ideas or record ideas through their voice memos. How many voice memos do you currently have on your phone?
Let me see.
I'm betting it's a lot. And
I feel like
good.
I actually only have 306, which I feel like is pretty low. But it's also because I'll write a lot of like lyrics inside of my inside of my notes. So my notes app is also like a little weird. Like it'll be like a checklist of things that I need to remember, and then some lyrics, and then like something else random. And then I've been using like Logic to do a bunch of like little things when I sit down and play.
Nice. Luke says you have 305 more than hit.
Let's see. I don't want to miss any of the chat.
So before we kind of move forward, if anybody has any questions, Dancer Frank, thank you for your question earlier. I hope we answered it to the best of our abilities there. But if anybody else has any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, and I will do my best to field them as we move forward. So you kind of talked about some new music that's coming up. What can you share about it? Do you have a release?
Yeah, well, I just have one song.
Okay.
Since I'm pretty much doing one at a time for like money wise. And I was reading Frank's comment, and that's probably the most received comment that I've ever gotten since I started writing songs. So I essentially have to say that I release whatever songs I want to release, and this next one is also going to be pretty slow. So
Awesome. And is that kind of all the? Have you released any other information about it, like release date or anything like that? Or
I'm still deciding between a couple dates, but it'll be middle of August.
Okay.
And this one is, the last 3 songs were produced to be more like singer-songwritery. And then this one's it's a little more like ethereal sounding. Like we've got some cool like layered things, and we have like the electronic drums and everything along those lines.
Thanks for hanging out, Island Vibing Presence.
Yes, thank you.
We really appreciate you. Hopefully you can catch the rest of the podcast on Spotify. It'll be up tomorrow. We'll send you the link there. So with everything kind of going on, obviously there's been a little bit of a gap in between releasing music. Was there were you just kind of writing in this? I don't want to call it a break because that doesn't even seem fair, but were you just kind of in a full on writing session, or what have you kind of been doing over the last several months?
I mostly can't afford to record multiple songs at once. Not with the producer that I'm working with. And I know that like I could probably choose to work with somebody else who is cheaper, but I don't know. They're just like my songs that are going to live on forever. And I want them to be the way that I want them to be. So
yeah, for sure.
So that's why I'm taking a break, because I'm trying to figure out how to make money doing music and then to put that money toward recording more music. Yeah. So I wish I could say that I have a ton of songs ready to be recorded, but I'm just trying to figure out how to build a fan base right now, and kind of like what I'm doing to get things rolling a little bit more as like an actual professional musician.
And I'm sure Twitch is definitely going to help with that, as you kind of use that platform to, I don't even want to say audition new music, but try it out and see what people think of it. As far as like when you're going through the process of deciding what songs you're going to record, how do you usually like to I'm going to use the word road test them a little bit, or do you kind of just go off of your initial gut reaction?
Yeah, so with the acoustic songs that I have, I feel like those were the 2 songs that I might take down someday in the near future as I release a couple more. But all the songs that I released after were just songs that I really loved. And I honestly didn't have any thought process behind that, except I love them. And I think it was just, I played them out a few times at writers rounds, or at least Your Ghost and In Another Life. And those 2 were the ones that people found like really memorable. Nice. The last 3 songs that I released were completely my choice, because I hadn't played them for anybody like during the pandemic. And I showed them to, I think, my mom and my producer. And then, so I chose a favorite, and then I did I Miss Being Me, because it was like the faster, like more uplifting song. And then Blue was just like the song that both the producer and my mom were like, this is my favorite. So that was my
Blue that
was my first release. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. So as you're kind of getting ready to release release this new song, what's kind of going through your head as you prepare for the oncoming weeks of promotion and stuff like that?
Yeah, I feel like I learned a lot from these last 3 song releases, because I had just released my other 2 songs in a different way, and how much more kind of tedious it is to do everything completely on my own. Yeah. And I think people like, if you're a bigger artist or you have certain connections, like maybe it is cheaper to record your songs, but going for like the photo shoot, the recording of the song, the like running ads for the song, it ends up being like thousands, you know, a couple thousand, a few thousand dollars.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's kind of an exhausting process in terms of like knowing that I'm releasing this song. And I honestly have no idea when I'm going to go in and record my next song is probably my least favorite part about releasing is like, I don't really know when I can make all this happen again. But I have everything ready for it in terms of like photos, videos, and then my ads that I'm going to run for it. And then I just have to do like a day of pitching it to blogs, which is probably the most boring of it all.
I get it. And hopefully this Twitch will really help expedite the process of being able to release new music and stuff. And, I've seen it do wonderful things for musicians. So hopefully you continue with the consistent streaming and we'll be able to have much success in that world.
Yeah. I'm hoping so too.
Outside of music, like when you just need to kind of get away, escape, and do your thing, what's some of your hobbies? What do you do to kind of get away from everything?
Yeah, so I love practicing yoga. I used to teach it, and then I actually quit teaching right when the pandemic started and decided not to go back because it felt like I didn't have any hobbies left. I was like, I can't do like all the things that I love for my job. So I love yoga because I feel like it's like an hour to shut off my brain because I'm definitely an overthinker. Yeah. So that's probably my like stress relief. I try to do that like 2 to 3 nights a week. And I really like nighttime yoga too, is what I've learned. Yeah. And then, let's see, probably like yoga and going for walks is like my kind of like way of de-stressing. And then I really like just like going out and hearing other artists play music and supporting my friends. Cause it's always fun too, to just like go to something without going with anybody and then being able to, cause the music scene here is like pretty close. And so I'll end up seeing people there that I know. So it's fun to go and check out live music too.
Nice. That's awesome. Nashville is good for that. And I think it's a common trait amongst musicians. I've noticed that a lot of them, like when they're not playing music, they like to do something outdoorsy, whether it's go for hikes, walks, just kind of being outside. And I'm still trying to figure out what all that means, like what that connective tissue is.
Yeah. So, that's interesting.
But yeah, so it's just one of those things where it's like, every time I ask that question, it's like, oh, I like being outdoors. Okay, what's the connective tissue for this? I don't know yet. So
yeah, maybe we all need like a getaway from from all of our thoughts for a second.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. That's a pretty fair assumption. And then you'd mentioned that you work on the side as well. What do you do as far as work? Is that...
Yeah. So since I quit teaching yoga, I actually started this year having absolutely no idea what I was doing, which actually led to me doing all sorts of random things that I had no idea would even happen. So I started by walking dogs off of the WAG app in Nashville. And I still have like a few dog clients every week, but it ended up being exhausting as well because it doesn't really pay all that well. And then you have to like drive around Nashville. And right now it's like 100 degrees outside. So that was my only job that I had at the beginning of the year, was just kind of like running around walking people's dogs, which is not the worst job to have.
Yeah.
And then Emmy introduced me to Twitch. And then one of my other friends introduced me to Songfinch, which is this custom songwriting website. So
I did see that on your link tree. Yeah, your link tree. And I was trying to wait for that right time to bring that up because I'd never heard that before. So what kind of is Songfinch?
Yeah, so people send in their I don't even really know how to start. So if somebody wants a song written for like an anniversary or somebody's birthday, or there was like, I wrote some Father's Day songs during the like Father's Day time, and they'll send in like their memories that they have with the person, the things that they really want to be included in the song. And
nice.
And we write anywhere between like 2 minutes and 30 seconds to turn it into like a song for the person's like anniversary or their birthday. And so that's been a newer thing that I've been doing, but it's also been like a really good exercise for just being like, okay, I can't like spend too much time on these lyrics. So like, what's the like fastest way I can write, you know, turn this into a lyric. And it's been really fun. And
cool. That's awesome. It sounds like it legitimizes, or what was it, like a year or two ago, I kept seeing things pop up on Instagram where musicians were getting asked to write a happy birthday song or something to that effect.
Okay. I actually was one of the people that got that before I even heard about that it was a scam. So I got it, and this guy told me that it was his son's, I forgot what age he was turning, but it was his birthday. And he like gave me the details, and I even had like started writing the lyrics for it. And then when I was like, yeah, you can pay me through like Venmo or whatever. He said, oh, can I pay you through, I don't remember if it was like a check or something along those lines. And I was like, sure. And he's like, oh, I actually like somebody wrote the wrong amount on the check, and he took it from his like son's account. It became really weird.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this was before I knew it was a scam thing, or not thankfully, I guess, but thankfully I kind of like trusted my gut and being like, that sounds really complicated. So you can either cancel the check and like pay me through Venmo or PayPal, or I have to say no.
Yeah.
And since then I've gotten maybe like 15 or 20 more people like sliding into my DMs on Instagram. And every single time I'm like, please don't scam musicians. And then they block me or like immediately become inactive for me.
Nice. That's awesome. And unfortunate because that wasn't cool. I was seeing so many people do that.
Yeah. I was reading Frank's comment, and I actually don't have a regular job. And that was like before I was teaching yoga, and then it was actually really hard on my voice to teach like 10 yoga classes a week, on top of trying to be a musician. And so now I'm working multiple jobs. So I still don't have a regular job.
Gotcha.
But
hey, I mean, it gives you time to focus more on music and Twitch streaming, and just kind of making it work, making the dream work. So
so I've got dog walking, Songfinch songs, and then Twitch right now.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're doing really well on Twitch. And we'll talk a little bit about Twitch a little bit more, even though we've pretty much been talking about it the entire podcast. Yeah. But, just some of the streams that I've been in, it seems like you're doing really well there. The community seems very active and engaged and all that stuff. So that's got to be exciting and, just like, reassuring. Yep, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I also really like that it's kind of like its own, like rather than going and touring in all these different places, I get to have people join me from all like different cities and like different countries.
Yep.
And so I love like how far the reach is, and hopefully that can lead me to being able to do some like real life gigs in different places and actually have people show up to them in the future.
Have you ever done like I don't want to say like a legit tour, but have you like toured outside of Nashville at all, or has it all pretty much been like live shows in Nashville?
I've actually never even tried to do the touring experience. That was part of the I Miss Being Me, like writing that song, was I kind of fell out of being a consistent musician, if I'm being honest. And that's part of the reason why I was like, I can't go back to working like a yoga teaching job or anything that ties me to a schedule, because I was no longer really doing music for quite kind of anytime I told people that I was a musician, I felt like I wasn't really being honest, because I had kind of stopped. Like there would be many months where I wouldn't play any gigs and wouldn't really do much, but
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer here, but every time we have somebody on the podcast, we play a fun little game called Rapid Fire Randomness. And I have a random question generator sitting right in front of me. And I'm going to just fire off, say like 10 questions or so, and you're just going to answer them as quickly as you can. So if you're ready, we have Rapid Fire Randomness.
Okay, I'm ready.
Right. If you could pick the date of Groundhog's Day, what date would you choose?
When is Groundhog's Day? I feel like I don't even know when it is.
I think it's like March, somewhere in March.
Okay.
Anybody in the chat?
March. I feel like that's such a weird question since I don't even remember when Groundhog's Day is. Probably, I don't know, maybe February.
Okay, that works. If you could pick one superpower, what would it be?
Definitely like teleporting, being able to get from one place to the other, just snap of a finger.
That would be very convenient.
Yeah.
If you were on death row, what would your last meal be?
Maybe some like vegan mac and cheese.
So what keeps you up at night?
Probably anxiety, worrying about the future. Probably the worst things keep me up at night rather than it being like a fun thing.
Gotcha. How would you feel if marriage was conducted in 5-year intervals? I don't even know how to answer that question.
So like a different person every.
So basically, if when you get married, it only lasts 5 years and then you're on to the next one. And
as somebody who's not married, I feel like it would be okay if it were like an ending and then you got to choose if you renewed it or you ended it. I think that would be an okay.
Okay.
I think that would be okay.
Fair enough. How many push-ups can you do?
Like without knees, probably only like 10.
Do you prefer Christmas or Thanksgiving?
Christmas, for sure.
How are you different from other members in your family?
It's actually tricky because we're all creative. I probably am different in the fact that I've lived in more cities and have been more adventurous in the fact that I've moved more.
Very fair. Who's more adventurous, you or your mother?
Me.
What is your greatest insecurity?
I don't actually know what the answer to that is because I've been working a lot on liking all the parts of myself that I used to not like. So I'm not really sure. And I also don't really know if that's ever something I'd want to like divulge to people.
Yeah, fair. Very fair. What is something you always spare no expense on?
I feel like I'm pretty bad actually when it probably getting my hair done or like when I try or like my birthday maybe or like when I go to travel and I'm like I want to do like the nicest thing or probably too many things would be the answer.
Nice. And my favorite question that has ever come along on Rapid Fire Randomness. How much sawdust can you put in a Rice Krispie treat before people start to notice?
Does this have an actual answer?
No, it doesn't have an actual answer.
Per Rice Krispie treat, you could probably do like a tablespoon. I don't know.
I've seen that question pop up once before, but we didn't get to ask it. And I'm like, that is by far the best question.
Maybe I was going to say Dancer Chef should tell us since he's the chef, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a tablespoon because it has like the similar like that might be too much.
Yeah,
teaspoon.
Sure. Yeah. That's so funny. Dancer Chef, we will wait for your response in the chat. Depends on the wood. Okay, very
that's
fair.
Luke
Very
is way
fair.
better. There's way more factors to this than I was thinking.
I was just literally thinking sawdust. Okay, cool. Let's go. No, that's awesome. But once again, I do want to thank you so much for jumping on here. Hold on. People would be able to tell right away.
It depends on the depends on what else is in the Rice Krispie treat.
Well, it depends on if it's actual Rice Krispies or if it's like a generic knockoff from Walmart or something.
Yeah.
So,
That's true.
but once again, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Really
there's-
appreciate you.
Let's see if I can.
Oh,
Oh my God. This is the first time I've ever been able to grab him.
Nice.
This is
That's
Milo for like my people that are still here.
nice. That's awesome. While I prep our raid and figure out who we're going to raid, if people want to
Yes.
check out your music or support you in any way or just interact with you on social, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah. So you can find me under Chelsea Burns Music on any of the social media, or just Chelsea Burns for music streaming.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? We've been talking about Emmy. I think she's still streaming. Yeah.
She is still streaming.
So I think we will just go ahead and raid Emmy for giggles. I haven't been able to raid her in a really long time. So since we're all friends here, we'll go ahead and raid Emmy Law. But
yes, Luke, you finally got to see a cat appearance.
That's awesome. But once again, Chelsea Burns, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I absolutely appreciate it. Hope to have you back on in the future. Whenever you're ready, you're welcome anytime.
For sure. Thank you for having me.
In the meantime, the raid call is in the chat, and we will see you all later.